I think we're here. I think that we are live. Let me close that. Hi, I'm Jane Frizzell, and you are watching Steinbrecht sessions. This is Steinbrecht session number 16. And this first semester or set of sessions, we are going line upon line, precept upon precept through what I call the DNA of riding. It's the section of Steinbrecht where he explains ride your horse forward and set it straight, which are also known as the two golden rules of riding. Now, today we're going to talk about a topic that gets a lot of people interested because of emotions and moral emotionalism and ignorance. And that is spurs. My old friend Joao Oliveira once teased me. I was riding a kind of big stiff horse. He says this horse needs vitamin S. And I was like, oh my God, another, like another little powder I have to go put in his supplements, another supplement. And vitamin S is spurs. Now, what does Steinbrecht say about spurs? I know what I know about spurs, but now what I know about spurs matches what this master said and what other masters said about spurs. And all of the masters did use spurs. They wore spurs every time they were on a horse, unless it was like first week green baby. They had their spurs on, not to use them, but just in case they did. Because one of the main things that we're going to find out from reading this section of Steinbrecht is that the spurs are for a phase of the education. A trained horse does not need spur. But he did have an education with this. He did have a semester or a segment of his education. I don't know why I'm holding this lip quencher. He did have a phase of this, a phase of his education with the spur, like kind of probably pestering him a little bit. But he learned what the spur was saying to him. And therefore, his good trainer doesn't really need them, except you've got to remember how optimistic horses can be. So my horse may be very honest, diligent, forward, straight for weeks and weeks, or even months, or even a couple years. And then one day he's just gonna go and not be diligent with one or the other hindquarter. And guess what? Because I'm a trained rider, my spur is on, no biggie. I felt it through my seat as it happened. Bing, just I touched with the spur and I remember. And he says, of course I remember. I was just seeing if you would notice. And I say, I love you too, my darling. And onward we go. But if you don't have your spurs on because of some moral superiority that you have about wearing them, your horse is going to lay on your leg and not be in front of it and not be carrying himself straight on the intended line. That's really what the spur is for it. But he makes an even more clear point here that I think of the spur like the wedding aisle, like you go to, like the gauntlet. You get between the spurs, and then at the end, you wind up with the relationship you want. And he pretty much says that. Listen to what he says. This obedience of the horse, which is brought about initially by its respect of the spurs, must be gradually converted into trust and attachment to its master for the relationship between the two to be correct. So just with that sentence here, Steinbrecht is telling us, and this is what everyone who knows says, that they are for a phase. And once it's understood they are not needed. And certainly anyone that, I have never made a mark with a spur. If your spur makes a mark, it didn't work. They're for a phase. They're for a semester in his education. They're for fourth grade. Once he understands, he's like, oh, I understand now. I don't need them. But we wear them when we're on a horse, just in case, because if we don't have it in that instant, a whole, like he says earlier on page 71, like he says, all of the faults that make a horse resistant and often even ruin it can develop. So I wear my spurs and I don't, I don't nag my horse at all. I just have them just in case we need it, in case he needs a reminder. And everybody needs a reminder. Who doesn't have a reminder in their discipline every now and then, here and there? So these are very, I don't know who is a worse problem or who is more, who is waylaying more riders from knowing the right way to ride. Is it the people that are making holes and marks and wounds on the horse's side with their spurs? Or is it the self-righteous ones who say, I never wear spurs, I don't need spurs? You do. And all of those who say they don't need them, their horses are not, their horses, I'm just going to use the master's words, I'm not even going to try to say it myself. The horse does not maintain on his own a body position on the intended line that is connected with effort. And that is a forward straight, uphill. He talks about relative elevation, straight forward, uphill, on the intended line. That is a round horse. And that is a body position, which now, this is something you could write down. The spur's function is positional, not motivational. Positional, not motivational. I would argue it has more to do with straightness than with the going. The two tasks. Well, should I just read this? I'm going to tell you the two tasks before I read the passage. The two tasks of my little Prince of Wales spurs. Oh, I should have brought some spurs to show. Little Prince of Wales spurs, little soft Prince of Wales spurs. No big, jangly, disgusting rowels. No, little tiny Prince of Wales. You know what they're like? Do I have a pencil? I think of my spur as the eraser. I have two little short pencil erasers, and I just eraser. Beep, beep, beep. And usually it's only on one side for a little while, because usually they are a little cattywampus, and there's your spurs. I'm going to get to the point here. What are the two uses, the two purposes of the spur? Are number one, to cause the hindquarters to act uniformly so that they match each other in both effort and mechanics, and to strictly supervise their tracks. That's what the spur's for. So you see how my little eraser, getting a little centimeter wide there, sweetie. And then they go, oh yeah, sorry. No, that feels better. I like what you explained with that little pestery spur. Oh, don't forget. But I'm not a nag and I'm not a bitch. They are explaining. These are for explaining, and they're for a season until the horse goes, ah, my body really feels good when I use it on that intended line. the way the little peskering said, feels good, really feel good. So then you have a horse, he's into it. You don't need your spur, but he will, all of us. I will lapse in my discipline, and so will he. So wear your spur for the one day next year that you might have to go, hello, my darling, don't forget. Oh, you see, that's what a spur is. It's hello, my darling, don't forget. It's not motivational. I'm going to read you. One other point I want to bring up about how how the Germans have gotten a really bad rap from a few harsh German riders, but there's plenty of very mangly French and light people also. I like to remember and remind myself what Baudin said about les petites attaques. It's a petite attack. And isn't that what we're being told about here also? And it's Prince of Wales. It's not big clanky spurs like Pirelli wears in Publix. It's just a little tiny little boop, boop. Oh, my darling, don't forget. But that was the point I wanted to add in, that the real French echoes this. Now, one thing I want to say is that the hindquarters are stimulated as part of it too. But that doesn't mean I'm making him go. It's more like waking them up. And remember that Steinbrecht a couple pages ago, you're going to remember he was decrying the problem of the stiff rider with hard legs. The spur use is by a very light, very fast, educated, and it's centimeter by, it gets very, it is, oh my darling, it's not anything huge. It does require this education and understanding about the correct body position on the intended line. You know, I think I'm going to be quiet now. I think I've said it. I am going to read you this section. The sentence before the paragraph and the sentence following the paragraph, and the paragraph, of course. Blah, 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 a body position that is connected with effort for them. Da, 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 da. The work of collection, namely putting the load on both hindquarters and bending them by load, gives the rider an opportunity to firmly establish the horse's obedience to the spurs. He must use the spurs not only to get or stimulate the hindquarters to act uniformly, but also to strictly supervise their tracks, and must not let them stray the least bit from the intended line. So easy. They must not stray, not the least bit. Beep, beep, beep. If the hindquarters are under the rider's control or management, if the horse has the idea, that is, if the rider is able to precisely determine the degree of their load and their activity, the entire horse is under control or management, since every movement originates in the hind legs and their correct position. This is under control since every movement originates in the hind legs, and their controlled position also requires the correct effect of the moving forces on the body mass. So we're just now right back at ride your horse forward and set him straight. And the aim, are we not? The rider trainer has achieved his aim. I'm supposed to look at there, sorry. The rider trainer has achieved his aim and fully trained his horse when both forces of the hindquarters, the carrying power and the propulsive force, bound by elasticity, are fully developed, and when he can use the effect of these forces at will and in precise ratios. The spur helps finish this idea, doesn't it? It makes it very, so they don't stray the least bit from the intended line, so that and listen, he's repeating himself. If the hind legs are under the rider's control, if he has achieved his aim, if he's able to precisely determine the degree of their load and activity, he's done. We're done. We trained the horse. Okay. What I'm really hoping that you guys are hearing is how Steinbrecht's a one-trick pony, right? It's all about the aim of the rider trainer, which he spelled out early on, and which is the very first thing that we do in our curriculum, isn't it? Day one, first sentence. And he's very true to the two golden rules: ride your horse forward and set him straight. I really hope that you're hearing this. You're hearing these two DNA strands of decent, great forward riding in this section today.